Good morning. Welcome to another episode from RV4x40.com. My name is Jim. Glad to have you with us today. We're going to talk about converting a manual roll-up reel for the electric power cord for this RV to a Glendenning electrically operated motor-driven device. Makes life a little bit easier to pull it back on when you're out and have the cord extended. That's the whole point. So we're going to show you the installation and then how it works at the end. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having a good day.
Well, today we're getting ready to trade out the power cord reel. What's in there is kind of come loose from where it needs to mount, and I decided to replace it with an electric reel. I guess I'm getting lazy, but one of the upgrades I wanted to do was to replace the manual reel for the power cord with an electric one from Glendenning. And so we got to first of all start looking at the compartment to see what has to happen there. And that's the compartment. You can see the existing reel that's in there, and you can also see that there's some junk and there's some oil spilled. I keep the diesel additive jar in there. It's convenient for when I put fuel in, and so we're going to have to get everything cleaned up before we can take this out. So that'll be the next step.
Well, here we have our new Glendenning 50 amp cord power reel. Fairly unique device. It's electric retract. It has a release where you can pull the cable off without having to unspool the motor. One of the things that's unique about it is this latch, which allows you to actually pop the connector out of the mating receptacle on the pedestal, so makes life easier in terms of getting it out. There also is an LED that tells you have power on, but I'm not as worried about that. In our case, the device is going to go in the RV in this direction. This is the back wall. The switch right now is mounted on the back, and so it does have an ability. There's holes over here to mount the control switch on this side, which will make it on the outside when we're actually using the device. So first thing we're going to do is move that. 2 screws on the switch box, and that is it. Challenge number 1 is that the 2 screws to mount the switch on this side, screw holes are in the right place. However, the hole is not threaded for the screw. Our next task is to take the cover off the automatic transfer switch, which may be challenging with this box in the way. But there we go. And one of the things you inspect periodically on this brand is that there's no overheating discoloration. This is the inlet side, and getting to that clamp is going to be a challenge because of this. So what I'm going to do next is spend some time disconnecting this. I'm not going to video the whole thing. There are 4 wires, a green safety ground, 2 hot leads, and a neutral lead, all going in there. They're color coded on this side, so it's no question about where they go to. The old reel is completely disconnected and wound up, and so it's time to take it out and see if we can set the new one in. There's our service cord disconnected. The bolts are out that hold it in. And now then, let's see if we can get it out of here. Just like that. And we'll wipe some of the dirt up out of this corner. Try and clean things up just a bit before we put the new one in and figure out how we're going to bolt it in place. Here's the finished product. We have the new electric reel installed where the old one was. This one is slightly larger, but it still fit quite well in there. Had a little bit of trouble tilting it to get it in because the door opening is smaller than the opening of the compartment. But you can see the reel in place. The retract switch is here. I ended up putting this back on the original side because I realized this cord came out here where I was going to put it to have the wire come off the top. Would have put that back in that corner, having to come all the way around and back up. So I put this back where it was originally. I moved this device here down to the bottom so that it would allow this cord to come off nicely off the bottom with the rollers and so forth to allow it to pass smoothly. And this is the cord that goes in, actually goes into this transfer switch. In addition to this coming in, the generator comes in. Out from the transfer switch goes into the protection device. This checks the incoming AC voltage for voltage, frequency, and make sure that everything is copacetic on the input side before it has a contactor that applies the AC power to the coach. So that's all. This and this were there before. This is the new part, and so cord comes out. You can't probably see it in the video, but this access panel here has rollers on the bottom, so when the cord comes out, it has something to roll against instead of having to drag over the edge. So that's something was already in this coach because of the reel it had before. So that's what it looks like installed and hooked up and ready to go. Works just fine. There's 36 feet of electric cord on that one, and I'm not sure what the previous one was. It was 25 or 35 feet anyway. So no change in that, but much easier to retract. The power wiring comes in here, goes out underneath the coach over to the other side. I'll show you the end of that before the end of this video, how that's connected in, but it's run in this kind of wire loom across through some chassis members and into a similar compartment on the other side. Holes are drilled. They will be filled with a black foam when I get that. I don't have any at the moment, but to seal those holes up so creatures can't come in through those access points. This is the reel with the power cord in the retracted position. I'll show you how easy it is to get it out of here. The motor actually releases from the spool when you want to take it out. So pull it out just a little bit, drop that in there, and we can start to pull out the cable. This actually pulls out easier than the old hand-operated reel because it stayed engaged the whole time. Well, it's just a matter of pulling out as much cord as you think you're going to need. Stop there and go hook it up. All right, we've got our cord out. Time to plug it in, get power back onto the RV. Make sure the circuit breaker for the 50 amp outlet is off before you plug it in. This simply plugs into there. Flip the circuit breaker back on. The green light will come on. In our case, the transient protection device has to look at this power first before it decides it's okay. It will then close the contactor, applying power to the coach. Well, I don't have all of the 36 feet of cord out, so this isn't a test of how strong the motor is, how well it can pull in the entire length of possible cable. You very seldom need that much. But we're going to show you what happens when we flip the switch and we pull in this power cord laying on the ground from where we just disconnected it. There it is. It's all the way in. No effort on my part except a little bit of finger pressure holding the switch down. And as you can see, as it has drag, the motor speeds up, slows down a little bit. And that's how it's supposed to work. Now this is a look at the power distribution system I have installed back in this compartment. It's the rearmost compartment on the curbside of the RV. And I have a number of amateur radio transmitters and other devices installed back here, which I don't want power on all the time. So that particular box, and it's made by MFJ, it's upside down in the way it's mounted, but that takes in a up to 40 amp DC power. It comes in through a relay, and the switch in the dash that turns the internal radio on and off also controls that relay. So once the relay is in, then I have active power. in there, and the connectors that are used are Anderson power poles. They're the 30 or 45 amp version depending. And so you have an individual fuse for each of those outlets. There's some screw terminal strips on the left hand side. There's a 40 amp input fuse on the right hand side, so everything is fused at 40 amps, and then individually you can fuse each of those outputs at whatever power level you think is appropriate. And so it'll depend on what this is driving. But those are available probably from Amazon, the Anderson power poles. You really need to have a crimp connector for that type of contact to make them work right. You can solder them together, but I don't recommend that. So that's how power gets into it. It has a benefit or a drawback depending on how you look at it. And then I have to remember to turn the radio switch on the dash in order to get power to that device, in order to get power to the reel. And I am sure I will take some time to get that emblazoned in my memory, that I have to turn that switch on, because it's off a lot of the time. So if I come out to use the reel, that switch is off, I have no power. I have to walk back around into the coach, turn that switch back on. So I am sure I will learn to do that with a few times of not doing it. It'll become ingrained in my memory. One point that is missing in the documentation is how much 12-volt power the unit draws. It is shown on the nameplate and it's listed as 20 amps. However, that is also a bit misleading. It's a DC motor, so it pulls a rather large surge current when you first turn it on. I don't have the equipment to measure that surge, but it's kind of in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 amps from what I can tell. The running current, however, with the cord not all the way out, is only about a half an amp. That probably goes up to an amp or an amp and a half if you're dragging the entire length of the cord. So in terms of wire size, you probably should be using probably number 10 or number 12 wire would be sufficient for it. I have number 14 in there and it's working fine. They also recommend a 20 amp fuse. And if you're going to put a 20 amp fuse in there, you definitely want either 10 or 12 gauge wire. I'm running it right now with a 15 amp fuse, and that seems to be fine for everything I've done. I may find out later on that I have to increase that wire size and increase the fuse size. We'll see as we use the device in the future. Well, there you have it. We've installed the electric power reel. It's working. Everything is fine. Give you a few thoughts and comments about the Glendenning. This is not a long-term review. We just installed it, hooked it up. It delivers power to the RV, and I expect that to last for a very long time, knowing the reputation Glendenning has for a quality product. Overall, I would say it's very well built, well designed. It works well. I have no issues with how well it works. The materials appear to be solid. The coating on the reel is solid. I'm not sure if it's powder coat or paint, but whichever it is very nicely done. It looks good. And all the wiring is properly done, of good heavy quality, so no issues with that. My one complaint is that they have a number of mounting hole options that are already pre-drilled into the plate. You can move the switch from one side to the other. There's holes that line up with that properly. You can move the bail, or whatever they call it, that guides the wire in and out to a number of different positions. However, one of the drawbacks, and I think this is really just a pennies wise, pound foolish kind of thing, the extra holes that they drilled, while they're very nice, they're properly located, but none of them appear to be tapped. And the holes that you actually use that come from the factory, of course, they're tapped for an 832 screw. In my case, I happen to have an 832 tap, so it wasn't a big, huge deal, but a minor inconvenience when you're trying to install this thing. So that would mark it down a little bit in my book. The other thing, which is another case of kind of classic missing a design point, they have a number of holes around the outside rim of the reel to mount that bail to. And unfortunately, while the holes look to be evenly spaced, they're not. So if you start the holes counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think there's 6 holes on each side of it, you can use 1 and 2, or 3 and 4, or 5 and 6. You cannot use 2 and 3, or 4 and 5 to position that bail, because the centers of those holes, while they look the same, are slightly different. In any case, it works well, and I'm happy I did the upgrade process for this. I look forward to a long time of enjoying this without having to manually reel in the cords. That had gotten to be just kind of a chore sometimes. So thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button down below. If you want to get our videos as they come out, hit the subscribe button as well. And there's a little bell icon below the video that if you click on that, you will get an email every time we post a new video. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed RV4x40.com today, and we'll see you on the roads of America, and keep it between the ditches as you drive.